Friends and enemies, welcome back to the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast, episode number 171. My name is Joey. That's Len. This is the CBP Media Network. 54,000, 54.
Oh, I was waiting. What the hell is this? Like, what is this delayed silence?
What's going on?
I thought you were pulling Mitch McConnell on me.
Yeah. Listen, I saw KJP today lose control of the press gaggle for the first time in a long time because somebody either figured out on their own or it's in the logs or it was leaked that they've had a neurological expert come to the White House 8 times in the last little while, and they didn't think it was important to mention it. And the guy's
don't you have somebody like that come to your house? Like every couple of weeks, I have somebody showing up here.
This guy, Len, like they want him out so bad, and his wife is just keeping him in the water. Do not get out of the water, Joe.
You know what I've learned too through all this thing. Before we go any further, I wasn't aware, but all the donations that have been done to date,
they're his. Yeah. They
go to Kamala.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if somebody else comes in, all that money, I guess, will be returned to them, but there's going to be a delay, and it creates a whole problem. So,
okay, so there's precedent for this, right? I was listening to All In. They were talking a bit about this, and I guess in the past, I don't remember if it was that podcast or another one. In the past, though, there was a candidate that was basically like, destined to lose. And what they did, I can't remember which political party. I think it might have been the Republicans, or it was probably Democrats actually. They basically just stopped funding the campaign with a few months to go and just put the money back in the Democratic Party coffers, which is the other option. They can't just give it to another candidate, but they can keep it for the party. So, maybe that's the trick, Kamala. I don't know, Len. Listen, I'm sure we'll talk about it tonight in the notable news stories section. So maybe we'll drop this there and talk about the sponsors. EasyDNS. What a segue. If you want to get a website and host the domain, Mark is your guy. Go to easydns.com and check out the suite of services. They got everything there. Virtual private server stuff. They got email. You can actually buy a domain with Mark if you want to, which we have done a couple of times now. And all that stuff is best in class at this point, I would say. Every week, it seems like there's another Bitcoiner, another Bitcoin company complaining about their registrar, complaining about their website, complaining about their shop or whatever. I've never heard anybody complaining to Mark. So if you're not using Mark yet, it's time to start. EasyDNS.com. Promo code is CBP Media. And you can get 50% off your first round of buys. Not that you need it, because even if you had to pay full price, you'd still be saving time and money dealing with him instead of dealing with these other clowns that seem to be populating the internet, and just filling it with this other kind of shitty registrar options and services. So you should be going to easydns.com. That's where I would be going if I was starting something up. And we did. So, we're putting our money where our mouth is. Who's the other sponsor?
Yeah, Bull Bitcoin. Right. You mentioned the price of Bitcoin at the start of the show, Joey. Maybe a good opportunity. This is not financial advice to buy Bitcoin. Maybe a good opportunity. Again, that's not financial advice to sell Bitcoin. Do your own research. I'm giving you no advice here, just simply information. But Bull Bitcoin has you covered. You could buy and sell on chain. You could do it through Lightning. I'll be honest, I did not check the fees today. If the network fees spiked, if they're higher, then I would suggest
they're low, very low. They're very low.
So still on chain. Go on chain all the way. Consolidate your UTXOs as well. That's a different topic altogether. But nonetheless, buy with Bitcoin, with Bull Bitcoin, buy on chain. And if you even want to do with Lightning, they have the option available for you to do that. You can buy and sell through Lightning, buy and sell on chain. So really cool stuff over there. But you can also pay your bills. Now the price of Bitcoin went down a little bit. Maybe not the best time to start paying your bills with your Bitcoin, but you can do that with Bull Bitcoin. So if you have a bill that you want to pay, maybe several months overdue mortgage payment, well, you could sell your Bitcoin. You could then use the Bull Bitcoin to facilitate that payment. Also, you could buy gift cards with your Bitcoin, and with that, you could buy Home Depot gift card, Starbucks, whatever heck you want to buy, and then you could kind of indirectly spend your Bitcoin in the real world. So if you're buying these gift cards with your Bitcoin and then spending that in the real world, so it's kind of living on a Bitcoin standard. And of course, Bull Bitcoin is facilitating all these purchases for you. Check it out. If you haven't yet opened an account, do so. Our promo code is below. And if you do that and fund your account, $21 will be added to your account. No questions asked. And last thing, it's non-custodial. Such a good thing. We don't want custodial exchanges. We don't like them all that much.
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Speaking of custodial exchanges, last week's guest, Carlo Campisi, policy at ShakePay, and Professor Stefano Di Domenico. I had fun talking with those guys. Steph is an interesting character to me because he is looking into Bitcoin as a guy who's new-ish to the space and really let it absorb him. And, he became absorbed by it vis-a-vis his academic work. So he's doing a lot of research, I should say, which ShakePay very generously funded and provided data for in terms of figuring out, Len, who are the Bitcoiners? What is a Bitcoiner? Who is the median Bitcoiner? Are we smarter? Are we more financially literate? Are we a psycho, as the New York Times seems to think, or whatever publication that was that called us names? That was a fun interview. I look forward to talking to them again. And I told Steph after the show that anything we can do to promote his research, we will do it. So if he wants to come back on, they want to talk about some more studies, they want to talk to us about whatever, I am happy to help with that. This week, Wednesday, I'll be talking to Jeff Lucas, who's the CFO of Bitfarms. Normally, Len would do the mining interviews, but I'm going to take this one because I have some questions that I think are important as far as, I don't know, what's the term? Not culture, but maybe mining, like the state of the union in corporate mining in major miners. It's an interesting time to be a miner. Obviously, they just brought on Ben Gagnon as their CFO. He was their chief mining officer before, or CEO, I should say, today. And so I want to talk to them about what they're doing over there. You and I have, I think, while singing their praises, at least thought a bit about how the business model is going to work over there going forward with all these other big miners moving toward data center / HPC / AI as a secondary rev stream, or in some cases a primary rev stream. And they haven't done that. So I'm interested in having that conversation. Next Monday, Len
that's not gloss. Are you going to be asking the question about what's Riot's talking about? There's that
100%. 100% I'm going to. Yeah. I mean, how could I not? I'll say that I was talking to Len before, there's an email in the show inbox asking for the talking points, and I gave a few, but I didn't include that one. That's obviously going to be on there because I have never seen a hostile takeover attempt like this.
So Riot serious. Posted on X. There's a new website called abetterbitfarms.com. This is a Riot run website, and they're talking about what they say broken corporate governance within Bitfarms. This is straight from Riot, not my words. I'm reading it verbatim.
How is that legal? How is that legal? That's another thing I'd be curious about. Like, that seems to me to be awfully close to, I mean, maybe libel. I don't know. This is slanderous, libelous. I'm not sure, but you got to have some real evidence. And it seems to me like broken governance structures are really more subjective than objective. I haven't read the website yet, but I will in advance of Wednesday's show. And
of course, the link. I didn't.
Yeah,
I still haven't.
I'm gonna click it, and of course, sort of CBP throwback here. Since I am not super up on mining these days, if you guys have questions, I would love to hear them. I know I got a few from our guy SB in terms of the HPC stuff. He's big on miners, and so I asked him, what are the things I should be talking to these guys about? He gave me some good ideas, and I'm always looking for good ideas, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have any and you want me to be the front man for your question, hit me up. Let me know. You guys know how to get a hold of me. So, and then Monday next week, I won't say who, but we are bringing on, I'll be away. So we are bringing on a throwback CBP favorite to guest host the show. Someone you guys know, and I think, really enjoyed when the show was kind of in its infancy. And we talked with this guy a lot on the air and off the air too. He's been a good friend to Len and I in the show. And I'm looking forward to seeing him back on our air. Len, I half wish I didn't make the suggestion. I should have saved it for when you are away and done it with them. But it's too late now. The cat's out of the bag. So you're lucky. I really did. I did hit you with that one. That's going to be a banger, I think.
I gave you Scribe, so it's not like I gave you.
Scribe is good. Scribe was good too. I know. I know. He's very good. We actually used him a couple times, right? We used him on the interview with Brian. What was his name?
Oh, Kernigan,
exactly. And he was much more competent a sidekick than I would have been for that interview.
Yeah, look, Scribe, he knows his stuff. He's a very smart guy, and I was thankful he was able to come on when I wasn't willing to come on. That's the only times I don't show up.
You know how many questions I've gotten about that? people message me and they're like, I can't, like, we can't tell if you're serious. Did Len actually skip that show because of the guest on Monday or the guest on Wednesday night? I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, he took the week off. He's protesting. Conscientious objector.
You know, I'll give you another example. I've been what podcast do I talk about a lot? That's
of course, WBD. Yeah.
I've taken them totally out of my rotation in entirety just because they speak. The guy, I can't get into it because this is, but I will be very vague. Says one thing, does another.
You see, Tom and Nick just had him, or Tom just had him on Your Life, Your Terms?
PBD?
Not PBD. WBD, McCormick. Not
not that David. PBD. No.
Okay.
PBD.
Okay.
PBD. But PBD, I got pissed off what he did. He says one thing and did something else, and from then he's out of my rotation. McCormick was out of my rotation a long time ago. So yeah, like whatever. I stand by certain things, and
you are nothing if not consistent.
Principled, angry.
Yeah. Sure. That reminds me, we got to put a clip out there tonight for All Caps about you talking about the ETF and self custody. I told him that
ETF is not self custody. ETF.
No. He knows that. He knows that. He wants to hear. We'll talk about this during the Gox. We have Gox on the docket tonight?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, we'll get there. I won't even have to prompt you. You'll say it anyways. So
okay, let's talk about boosts because we do have that. I like to get that off my chest. Top 5 boosts of the week. Number 5, we got Wartime, 333 sats. Excellent rip. Good takes.
God bless.
Thank you. Piez. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. 420 sats. Good number, by the way. Thank you, gentlemen, with a couple of beer mugs on there. So like that one.
We know that means cheers now. That's what we know that means cheers now. Yeah.
Mo BTC Dick, 500 sats. Someone give the Bitcoin price a hawk tua. Grease that price up a bit.
Spit on that thing.
We need the Sheik to come out and do that. He was the original hawk tua guy.
Listen, that's advice for life for sure. Yeah. Okay.
Duggan Roop, 1,025 sats. He writes, can't wait to see how their work develops, and industry-funded research is great to see from ShakePay. Yeah. I also like the idea of a Why Are We Bitcoin Academics BTC Sessions hat tip podcast.
I think Ben could pull that off. It sounds like Stefano, I don't want to speak for him. I don't want to speak out of turn about people I've never met, but it sounds like maybe they're just a tad gun shy to get out in front of this whole thing before it's released. So you might see that in the future, but I think for now, probably that show with me and Carlo is the most you're going to get. Plus he did the conference too, right? He was just speaking about this study in Montreal as well. So he's been out, but my understanding is that it's kind of in poor taste to do too much without your colleagues before publishing. So soon, but not yet. But I totally agree. I strongly agree with the sentiment.
And last but not least, we have Shirtless Summer 3000 sats. Great content as always. Wish the vagrants would steal the 30-kilometer signs going up all over here in Victoria, BC. No rash of kids getting run over, but we must all drive 30 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, that's standard. My uncle has a great take on this, that when my wife and I were first looking for houses, this was like 7-8 years ago, he said, go through the neighborhood during the day and count the number of women pushing strollers wearing Lululemon yoga pants. And he said, although it may be nice to look at, you can almost guarantee that there's a direct correlation between the stupid number of traffic interference laws and regs and obstacles you're going to have to get over, whether it's speed bumps or 30-kilometer speed limits. There's a direct correlation between those things and the number of Lululemon stroller pushers. And Len, I got to say, living up there for 6-7 years, he was right. And down here, the per capita stroller Lululemon is very high and the speed limit is very low. So I think there's something to that. I don't know. We got to look into that. Can we get some academic research on that? Is that feasible, you think?
No, I could give you some psychic thoughts on this. I'm picturing speed bumps coming in your area.
They call them speed humps, by the way. Speed humps, which also that's usually what I do on like a Wednesday afternoon if my wife is home for lunch or something. But
why not speed bumps? What happened to that word?
Because they can't in good faith be called bumps. Like they're fucking huge. They're enormous. They'll rip the bottom off your car if you go over them any faster than 10 kilometers an hour. It's insane how high and how wide they are.
There you go. So you're going to get some speed humps in your area. That's from my psychic thinking right now. So be
Crazy.
ready. Your suspension is going to need replacing every couple of years as a result.
Yeah, at least, man, at least. One other
Then you throw it out the
programming,
window.
two other programming notes before I forget. Three other ones actually, because you forgot one already. Last week I went to a meetup in Dundas organized by our buddy D. Decent turnout. Next meetup, I want to see more people. I didn't do a good job advertising it on this show. I should have. It was the Collins Brew House. There's probably 7, 8, 9 of us, maybe something like that. Really good to talk to Bitcoiners as always. And BTC Beef was there. I don't want to say who it was in relation to the whole group because I'm not sure if everyone knows. But anyway, definitely come to the next one. I'll maybe send a tweet out or something, or we'll talk about it on the show. Next week's interview is a pre-recorded interview I did with Madex on day one of the conference. So no video, no live chat, but it'll be on the feed, audio and video like usual. And then also, we're supposed to give a shout out to Gabe for
well, not just to Gabe. First, it's going to be the Ottawa Bitcoin meetup is going to be at the North Gloucester Public Library at 6:30 p.m. And Gabe, aka BTC Advisors, is going to be there. He's
what
been
day,
on the
man?
show
What day?
Wednesday.
Okay.
Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm not going. It's too far of a drive.
Yeah, bit of a drive to Ottawa, Gloucester, I guess, from here. But anyway, yeah,
I've done the day trip to Ottawa, and I've watched the Senator. This is many years ago when the Leafs were actually in the playoffs. I guess they're in the playoffs this year, but I watched the Leafs play the Senators Sunday night.
What iteration
in
of
Ottawa.
Leafs? Like the Wendell Clark Leafs or the Darcy Tucker Sundin Leafs? Like what are we talking?
This is Darcy Tucker, but Sundin was injured in this playoff, so it was Gary Roberts was carrying the Leafs that year and was that series. So it was Game 6 in Ottawa. I think that was Game 6, and Leafs won, took it back to Game 7, and we went to the game Sunday night. I went to work Monday morning, drove back stupidly fast, and it was a different time.
Same car though, different time, same car.
Yeah, so this was a time before you could go 50 over the limit and not have your license suspended. So allegedly, the car was going about 2 times faster than the speed limit, allegedly. And so I got from the think about this, from the Corral Center, whatever the fuck it's called now, the Corral Center. We left, and I got to Weston and Lawrence in Toronto in 2 hours and 45 minutes.
That's insane.
Fucking flew. That's could
insane.
not repeat that these days, especially with that car. It's not going to be able to maintain that speed. But yeah, man, I do it again if the Leafs had a big run and I was back in hockey, but not in hockey anymore.
Oh God. Anyway, so where should we start here? We got
okay. Let's talk about
news. What do you?
Yeah. Okay. I think there's some events going on.
18-minute intro. Is that the longest intro we've ever had? By the way, 18 minutes of housekeeping. Jesus Christ, it'd be amazing if anyone sticks around for the rest.
It's a lot of banter back and forth. I like it, but either way, there's 2 events. It looks like they're spooking Bitcoiners, or at least people that are buying and selling and trading Bitcoin. Whatever the fuck. Number one, we have what's going on in Germany. They're selling off a decent amount of Bitcoin, and this may be part of the reason, maybe wholly the reason why the price of Bitcoin has gone down. I don't know. To be honest, I really don't care. It's a good time to buy, in my humble opinion, not financial advice, of course. But the second thing, we also have Mount Gox, right? We have that thing. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. But either way, they're selling off their Bitcoin, or sorry, the creditors may be selling off their Bitcoin because they're now releasing it to the people that they owe. They're getting pennies on a dollar from all this, but still they're getting a pretty big payday in the grand scheme of things in terms of fiat dollars. We talked to somebody, don't want to mention who.
You're talking 10,000% gains, basically, right? Like an insane amount. Even if it's pennies on a dollar, like it's still,
it potentially could be life-changing for some people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say if it would be for this person, but either way. But as for the first one, I was talking about Germany selling off their Bitcoin. And this past week, up until today, they sold off around 10,000 Bitcoin in the past few weeks combined. Significant amount of Bitcoin that they sold, right? Like, but you got to take a step back here, right? 450 Bitcoin is being mined right now every day. We just had to halving 3 months ago, 4 months ago, April, whenever that took place. But back then it was 900 Bitcoin per day. Now it's 450. So the 10,000 Bitcoin that they sold up until today represents only about 22 days of mining under the current block rewards, right? So it's a lot, but it's not a crazy amount. It's just like we rolled back the clock a few months and went to the old issuance of.
Do you know what's encouraging too, Len? Like they sold today almost $1 billion worth, it looks like, if the wallet addresses are correct. And we absorbed all of it. We're green for the day. That's
insane.
That's a lot of demand. That's a lot of demand for Bitcoin. A lot.
And you could see, like, I don't follow the chart, but it dropped really quickly, but then it picked back up almost as quick as it dropped. There was a lag.
These guys don't know how to sell, by the way. Like, you're not supposed to just market sell 1,000 coins at once or whatever. You're supposed to trickle it out so you don't move the market. They're really eating their own lunch in a lot of ways doing it this way, but they don't know anything over there. They went from, sort of captains of industry in Germany to completely,
The question is,
in the last,
why are they
10
selling?
years. Because they confiscated it from some like illegal movie site years ago.
Yes.
And
okay.
I think they need money. I think they're not a productive economy anymore. They're in need of a cash infusion. I mean, Len, every government thinks this way, right? Here in Ontario, we've done it. Canada, we've done it. Other European nations have done it. Like they just can't help themselves. They don't think long term at all. They don't, and they're not going to start.
Why not just borrow against it?
These guys, Len, come on.
Right? Think you could really go down, because
come on. Who are they going to call? Are they going to call Maurizio? Hey,
I have no idea.
We got a couple billion in Bitcoin, Maurizio. Do you
Let's
mind?
do it.
Like maybe he would help him. I don't know. Maybe he hates the government enough to not answer the phone. I'm not sure.
Maybe they could have went to Silvergate before they went tits up last year. But the reality is they're selling it, and it's not like they're forced to sell it, because if they were forced to sell it because this was contraband and they want to get rid of the Bitcoin, the proceeds that they're going to get from it, they would then just basically get rid of it. They wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, the fact that they're using the money for something,
it's evaporating to show you probably an unbelievable pace too, right? Like, think about how fast they would spend that money. Days, weeks, a week max. Like, it's just gone. Crazy, absolutely insane. It's just so short-sighted. Meanwhile, like in the United States, you got one political party now talking about Bitcoin as a policy item. Like, if you had told me the States was more backwards than Europe when I was 20, I would have said for sure. But obviously now, like, I've seen the light in the last 10 years. What a difference. Anyway, I don't want to cut you off. Keep going.
Well, what happened? It was the Republican Party. They announced
the Trump camp. Yeah. They want to, it's protecting mining, protecting self-custody, no CBDC, no, there's like 4 or 5 points. Nick Carter has it pretty succinctly.
What's the correlation between the CBDC and Bitcoin?
I just think it's, well, I mean, there's enough of it that we talk about it sometimes. I just think that it's like, it's like a choose your way Western man meme, sort of. What do you want? Okay. Do you want the sort of freedom of Bitcoin, P2P transactions you can verify on your own with no centralization, no third party, no censorship, or at least very, very resistant censorship? Or do you want the WEF coin? What do you want? You want Klaus or Klaus's daughter or whoever takes over up there now that he's being accused of sexual misconduct? LOL, moron.
I don't even know that. But there's a world that I could see that there is a CBDC with it being backed by Bitcoin. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it's within the realm of possibility. So you could potentially have both operating within the same system. So there's not mutually exclusive.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
So that's why when you talk about CBDC, it's just another form of money.
But I like that they're banning it. Like, I like it, even if they don't actually ban it. Like, let's face it, I don't trust any politician at this point. But even if they don't actually ban it, at least we know that as a base, we're making enough noise. Your buddy David Bailey today making a good point that, if the crypto industry, and like he uses the term crypto, I don't know if I would use it, but I think for politics, I've said this in the past, I think I would use it for political reasons. If the crypto industry raises $300 million, we're the biggest interest group in American politics immediately, basically short of oil and gas. And the other thing he noted is that, if 1 in 5 people hold Bitcoin, like Coinbase seems to think, or hold crypto, like Coinbase seems to think, that's already the biggest sort of one issue voting base in history, if everyone is as passionate as you and me are. And so, like, the way I look at this, I see that stuff and I love it, but we're like kind of getting far afoot from Germany here. I think it's just all sort of, at the very least tangentially connected, I would say.
Well, they're also saying the right to mine Bitcoin and self-custody. There's nothing stopping anything from coming. Like,
well, sure there is. Liz and the boys don't want you to self-custody.
But there's no legislation right now. These guys want it. These guys don't.
Yeah. Not now.
But so you have two opposing parties. Not to say that one is going to happen or the other is going to happen. Just nothing has happened. So to date, I could mine Bitcoin in my garage. To date, I could run a node. To date, I could self-custody.
Yes.
And there's nothing stopping me. So it's kind of just pandering more than anything. But if they want to do it, all the more power to them.
I want to see those rights. I want to see those rights enshrined and protected in law. I think because
that I can hold 12 words or 24 words. Like, how can you? How asinine is that?
That doing so does not subject you to a difficult life under a modern government. And really, that's all this boils down to, right? There's not a lot of things that are illegal and like enforceable in Bitcoin, but man, can they ever make your life difficult? And I think they will, as things continue to go sideways in most of the modern world. But anyway, I don't want to.
We've had a year in Canada, and that people were able to stack very comfortably a way which could easily be mitigating a lot of these problems. So hopefully people took advantage of that. And anyways,
we talked about this. We talked about this a little bit at the meetup on Thursday, and I'll share it because I think it's a testament to Francis and the team over at Bull. There's people at that meetup who I had not met before, and all of them sort of knew about the podcast or knew that we did the podcast and that Bull was a sponsor, and we were talking about the non-KYC thing. And Len, these guys actually all think that basically everything you buy with Bull is non-KYC because they just have so much faith in Francis basically burning the house down before he gives up information about people to any government that asks.
So I can't speak on it. I could just say, like, as
I won't say yes or no. I won't say yes or no either. But
yeah. As for what I see,
the prevailing sentiment at this meetup was all KYC free or all corn bought on Bull Bitcoin is in pragmatic terms KYC free, which would be nice. But I think there's other ways. It would be. It'd be nice. Other ways to trace it too, though, right? I'm pretty sure, like if you're doing e-transfers and stuff like that, be aware, as Marty and Matt like to say, be aware. Don't get caught with your pants down.
Yeah, and Mt. Gox, I guess, is another thing I just touched on. We could talk a little bit more about it. So they're handing back some of the Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash to some of their creditors. I guess even BSV too.
There's a few things, because the airdrops, right? Is that how it works? Like the token? The
forks.
Yeah, sorry, forks. God, I should airdrops. Jesus Christ. Yeah, the forks exactly of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so all those forks that have just even some value, people. I suspect, this is just my opinion, the people that bought Bitcoin in 2013 and then got wrecked as a result of what happened with Mt. Gox, I don't think a lot of them are going to sell Bitcoin. They understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin.
Yeah,
sure, they made massive gains for kind of hodling it for the last 11 years, but why, unless they need the money and they have to buy something,
people, the thought that I've seen prevailing, again, I'm terrible cutting you off tonight, but I've had too many coffees, so I'm a little bit wired. The thing I keep seeing on Twitter that really makes the most sense to me, Len, is that the people who are getting Bitcoin released to them from the Gox legal proceedings are the ones who have not sold their coins to, for some percentage of the total outcome or output to some creditor agency, right? They haven't sold their claims. And I think people who are getting Bitcoin at this point are either hodlers, have bought more Bitcoin since, or have no intentions to sell the whole stack, right? So I don't think you're going to get maximum sell pressure on the stuff that's being released now. So in my opinion, I'm not really that worried about Gox. It seems like a lot of people are, though. You're right. Like it's like it's spooking people.
It's a FUD. Now, this is, again, my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but I think I share your thoughts. They're probably not going to sell, for the most part, Bitcoiners that are going to get their Bitcoin. Probably get a few that are going to sell. They need money for something, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But the majority won't. But I think that the people that are holding on all those forked tokens or coins, they're going to sell those.
For sure.
Right? Because I don't think that they believe.
What is that stuff even worth?
Bitcoin Cash? I have no idea. Was it like
I'll look. Keep talking.
So I think they're going to sell that. Not that it represents a huge amount, but still it's going to be probably driving down pressure on those shit coins. But either way, with respect to Bitcoin, because that's something we should be focusing more on, I don't think the whole Mt. Gox scenario is going to be impacting the price of Bitcoin all that much. Although I could be wrong. And if I am, better time to stack. It'll be cheap. Joey, you got the numbers.
What do you think it's worth? One Bitcoin Cash. It's a lot more than I thought it was.
Is it $500? Is my guess?
No, is it 330? I would have guessed like 100. It's $330. And then
so I overstated it.
Yeah, okay. BSV is the other one you said?
Yeah, I'll guess 50 to 75.
This isn't even on Coinbase, eh? Jeez. Okay.
They delisted that one everywhere in the past. It got 51% attacked.
That one's $36.
Oh, it's double the price.
Crazy.
All right, so shit. So they're all gonna go. Like people that if I got some of that, first I'd find a place where I could sell it. I don't know where the hell I could sell it. I'd find a place to sell it. The second thing, I wouldn't fucking sell it. I wouldn't keep it. Just get rid of it right away. Like it's a fucking joke. Keep the Bitcoin, sell the rest. You're good to go. But
insane. Yeah. I don't know why.
Anyway, anything else you want to add to these two stories? Because I think this is really the driving factor for a lot of
all caps. Turn the TikTok camera on. Len, can you give me a quick rundown on how, people who are worried about losing their coins in Gox or who lost their coins in Gox really is a lesson for people who are relying on the ETFs, never rug pulling or losing the coins?
Well, they're two different things, number one. So you have to look at each one separately. Although a lot of people kind of confiscate the two things. Like, they confuse the two things as being one in a way, but they're not. The ETF is, we'll use the example. I give you money, you buy Bitcoin for me, you manage it, and then at the end, when I want it, you sell it, you give it to me. That's what it is. I don't hold my keys. I don't touch my keys. There's no way for me to even get my keys. It's simply, I'm just giving you fiat. You give me back fiat. We call it a day. Now, as per what you do with that Bitcoin, depending on how it's written up in the prospectus, they could choose whatever fork they want based on whatever they want. So theoretically, you could be buying in to exposure to Bitcoin, but if there is a fork along the way and they choose to follow that fork, then your money is going to be tied towards that fork, not towards what you think may be Bitcoin. So there is some risk to it. And the fact that you're having somebody else manage your keys, you're having somebody else figure out what fork or what quote unquote Bitcoin to follow, it becomes really problematic later on. So it's just not a big fan of that. Also, when you do that, you are of the belief that you're going to get your money back in the end. If you think there's going to be any capital controls at all that's going to be put in the future, why would you put any eggs in that basket? So that's that. So with respect to Mt. Gox, when you're buying a Mt. Gox or any exchange, any custodial exchange, don't leave it on there. Take it off immediately or use a non-custodial exchange. When you buy anything on these custodial exchanges, you're asking them to hold on to your Bitcoin. You can get your keys once you ask them to send it to you, but a lot of people apparently don't. They believe that it's safe for them to hold on to it. They have access to it until they don't, until something happens. There's a hack or they just run out of money, FTX, for instance, and then they just lost access to it. Celsius, in fact, we'll be talking about Celsius in a bit. So either one are bad. If I had to choose which is the better of the two, I don't even know.
Neither.
I can't even pick which is the better of the two. It's kind of like
they both present, a unique set of risks, a lot of the same problems. It's not yours. You are risking it in someone else's hands, and you just do not know what negative externalities could cause you to be able to not be able to withdraw your coins, your fiat, or anything in between. You're kind of giving the most generous interpretation of potential events there, a hack or a bankruptcy. How about if you donate to the wrong protest? How about if you are a gun owner? How about if you tweet the wrong thing or start the wrong podcast or have the wrong guest on your podcast? These things are risky no matter how you slice it. And if you don't self-custody, you should assume that you're not going to get it. We assume this, by the way, with other stuff. Pension's a great example. All the money that I'm giving to CPP, I don't assume I'm going to get back. It's gone. It's forcibly basically taken from me without my consent. And I believe that it's gone. You should view these other vehicles, I think, largely the same way. Doesn't mean it will happen, but you will be better off having this adversarial mindset when it comes to everything that's not self-custody, period, end of story.
There's something I want to add to this. The Celsius story. I'm not sure if you heard about what happened with Celsius this past week. Somebody was reporting it's an absolute disaster. For people who aren't aware, Celsius was the place. In exchange, you could buy Bitcoin, shitcoins. You could do staking. They had their own special.
They had their own token, right? Yeah.
Their own token, yeah. So, but it went tits up a couple of years ago. And so I got to ask you, with an exchange, this is my opinion, what you could do with it. Maybe you could add to this or correct me if I'm wrong. You could buy, you could sell, you could trade, you could withdraw. Those are really the four things. Am I missing anything or?
I mean, it
right?
depends
Like
on you.
that
It,
gives me
does,
the,
it depends on how you frame stuff like sell. Like ShakePay will let you, spend your Bitcoin. Bull will let you spend your Bitcoin. I would personally frame those as sales. So
yeah, it
yeah,
is. You're exchanging it for something.
I think you have the full list. Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically, so one of them is it could keep it on there, right? So you could just leave it there, buy and just simply hold, right? Withdraw is the other one. So buy and then withdraw. So I'm looking at the withdraw one. The user on X, his name is Medx, MEDX, and he posted something that's rather troubling because he was a customer of Celsius. And he did what a lot of people do when they are users of an exchange. He bought Bitcoin or something else, and he took his shit off the exchange. This is not something extraordinary. This is not something out of the very odd. We just talked about it. This is what people fucking do. They buy shit, they withdraw it. That's fine. Either way. But he did this within the 90 days that Celsius went tits up. As a result, Celsius has launched a lawsuit against him and a bunch of other people in the state of New York. He's in the state of New York. So I don't know much about the other users that are being sued, but it seems like Celsius is under the impression that these folks had some insider information, some inside knowledge, and they knew something was going to come up. So they withdrew their digital assets from the exchange before they got rug pulled. But then now, a couple of years later, they're getting sued by Celsius, and it's being alleged that the lawsuit is going to be used to help pay the customers that lost their funds in Celsius. So they're basically robbing one guy who rightfully got his money off the exchange to give it to somebody else who just left it on there and trusted Celsius. This isn't right. This is essentially a wake-up call for people out there. Choose your exchange wisely. And we just touched upon what to do, like what's the difference between ETFs and the exchanges. Even when you take your money off in a shitty exchange, you could get sued in the right situation. Like this fucking guy. What a disaster. Fuck you, Celsius. This guy did nothing wrong. He just fucking pulled his money. He had no insider knowledge. He was doing like every fucking other user would do. Buy and put it on cold storage. Nothing else. He's getting fucking sued. Fuck you, man.
Why would they say you need inside information for any of this, by the way? Like, did you not see the interview with Saifedean and Schiff and Mashinsky and maybe it was Rand Newer from CNBC South Africa or something like that, where Mashinsky's talking about how everyone can get 7%. And Schiff and Saifedean are looking at each other for the first time, seeing eye to eye, and they're going, like fucking hell you can. Like, what are you talking about, bro? It makes no fucking sense. Anyone who saw that interview would have immediately been like, oh, fuck. I got to get my money off this thing now. And so is that within 90 days? I don't know. But I think the more people that saw that, and, as more people on Twitter were like, yeah, listen, it doesn't seem like these guys can actually be making that much yield, because to get that yield, you'd have to be in some crazy risky stuff. And there's just no guarantee that if everyone, went to pull at the same time, they'd have the money. And guess what, Len? They didn't have it. So I think this is sort of all for naught. They're, sort of taking shots in the dark. I think in the United States, which is where FTX or Celsius was domiciled, there's still some burden of proof. They can't just say that they're suing you for taking your money out without proving that you had inside information. Like, what is your proof of this? I would just be burning those letters on YouTube streams all day and all night. Like, there's no way you can make that claim to somebody. This is akin, I think, to the sort of CSW strategy, right? Where you pick on people who are a little scared, don't have legal representation, don't want to get in any shit. And so you come to some settlement maybe, but I doubt very much that any of this stuff is going to go anywhere unless people really bend the knee and decide they just don't want the trouble, which would suck for them, because I don't think, I'm not a lawyer. And even if I was, I'm not your lawyer, listener, viewer. I don't think this is legit. I don't think this is the way that you can do business.
No, I don't know what type of legal advice Celsius got and why they're trying to pursue action against these people in New York. And it just rubs me the wrong way to, like,
their
not
CFO, when they went tits up, their CFO became their general counsel. He's just taking shots in the dark.
Remember, we were in a chat not too long ago. Somebody was poking fun and posted that there's something that you could stake and get 80% APY. Like, nobody's questioning about like where this fucking yield.
Well, you can get it if it's in that token, but like, if you denominate in that token, fine. But if you want actual money, like, that 80%, I think would shrink pretty quickly, like Costanza in the pool there. I'm sure that you wouldn't get exactly what you were hoping for. So, this is the flywheel economy that so many of these companies did. And I talked about this in great detail with Mike Campbell maybe a year ago now ish. about these flywheels when FTX went under and all this stuff. Like, these guys are all running the same playbook and it doesn't work anymore. And at least for now, we'll see when the bull market really picks up some steam in the next few months, I hope, whether or not these things continue to work. But in the meantime, Len, I don't know. It's good fodder for us, right? Put these guys in the meat grinder, send them to the front lines of the podcast headlines, and enjoy talking about them. Is Mashinsky in jail? Did he get sentenced to jail?
I don't think so. Correct
Wow.
me if I'm wrong, listener or viewer, because I think he's still out.
That's crazy. I'll never forget that interview. That interview is amazing. Watching Safety. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it's Safety and Schiff.
It
And
is.
they're both just like, absolutely not. Like, you're nuts, bro. Listen,
But
I know we don't
what
agree on
was it?
everything, but we agree on this.
I'm curious, like, why would he go to? Because was there fraud involved? Like, what's the situation?
Yeah,
here?
I think he knew they were having trouble and hid it. If I remember correctly, I don't know exactly what the charges or allegations were, but I know he did get charged. So, I mean, I could look it up, but it doesn't make good content
Fuck
if I'm
it,
just browsing
yeah.
the internet. Yeah.
Let's talk about a story that we were discussing a few weeks back. And remember, it was to do with vulnerabilities in older versions of Bitcoin Core.
Yes.
And they said they were going to be releasing information as to what they are. Well, they released it this past week, which is interesting. And this is for Bitcoin Core versions 21 and older. These are fairly old releases. So if you're still running them, I'd recommend running something a little newer, unless you're forced to run these for whatever reason, or by choice. Maybe you don't want to have Taproot or whatever your choice. Either way. So the vulnerabilities we got, in what they are, was 10 in total. There could be more. I guess there are, because they say they're going to be releasing this information or more information as we go on. So it's going to come in 4 different flavors as they release information with vulnerabilities, not just in core version 21 and older, but even newer ones. So the different flavors are low bugs, and that has hard to exploit or have a low impact. Medium bugs for limited impact. High bugs for significant impact, and critical that could threaten the whole network integrity. So as they say it, the low bugs they're going to disclose 2 weeks after a fixed version is released. The medium and high will be disclosed 2 weeks after last affected release goes end of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the critical bugs are not considered a standard policy and will most likely require an ad hoc procedure. So starting this month, July, they're going to be releasing vulnerabilities that are disclosed or known in Bitcoin Core version 22. August, Bitcoin Core version 23 gets the same treatment, and so forth. And they're going to go through this whole exercise until they've complete all the different core, different versions of Core. It's too bad they waited so long to release some of this information. Well, we're not going to know everything for months. And at least now they have a new scheduling, a new policy. Whether you like it or not, at least it's more transparent. It is what it is. It's too bad it took so long, in my opinion, but here we are.
Who came up with the policy?
I don't know. I would assume it would be done internally without much consultation with the outside world, but I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
What I'm getting at is, to me, this sounds like the C word a little bit, that we very rarely use in Bitcoin. And
a cock?
Centralized. It sounds a bit centralized. And I don't know like how I feel about this. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I think we both agree that this is an important step, but everything from conception to execution here by a small group of people says to me that, you're certainly, if there is a case to be made that Bitcoin is being quote unquote run or developed or maintained by just a few people, instead of this, like, no, it's open source, anyone can contribute. This is a good thing that the SEC and other agencies would look at, right? I think this is an example, and I hope these guys considered that before they made this statement, because it sounds to me like they didn't consider it. And I think that this puts a target on them.
Well, that's their problem. I guess it's indirectly our problem too.
Yeah.
But the reality is, the bugs themselves, I mean, if you look at them individually, they're not game changers. They're not something that makes Bitcoin any less usable or that your coins were at risk. So we prefer to have it a little bit more open and transparent. I think they're moving towards that. In the end, like, it's still open source. We can still look at everything. We can still review everything. There's a lot more to this that a lot of others don't have. So yeah, it's not that bad in my opinion. Not that great,
Okay.
not that bad.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I just want to throw it out there, see what you thought.
Yeah.
But okay, no problem.
Silvergate, remember this bank?
Oh,
We
sure.
talked about this.
How could
Thank
I
you.
not?
So yeah, this is a bank that was involved with a lot of companies in the Bitcoin space. They were actually lending out a lot of money to Bitcoin miners, for instance, and because Bitcoin miners a couple of years ago were just expanding, and Silvergate was aggressively lending out money to these mining companies to expand. But either way, that all took place up until March 2023, and Silvergate at that time voluntarily liquidated their assets, and that's when shit really hit the fan because the price of Bitcoin tanked just a few months earlier.
Mhm.
Anyways, the parent company, Silvergate Capital Corp, they have been charged by the SEC for misleading investors.
Oh my God.
And this all stems from allegations that the bank had an effective Bank Secrecy Act / anti-money laundering program. But in reality, they didn't have one. So, and these charges, they were ultimately settled, $43 million to the Federal Reserve and another $20 million to the California regulator. So what's messed up about this is that the SEC was making claims that Silvergate didn't detect any suspicious transfers by FTX. They were one of their customers. Those transfers totaled around $9 billion. Remember, Alameda Research and FTX, there was some shenanigans going on. It looks like Silvergate was in the middle of all this, maybe having the money transfer from one place to another. Either way, it's a black eye in the industry. Another one, banks that are going to be dealing with Bitcoin businesses moving forward, they're going to look at this, and I think it's going to be more problematic for businesses to want to get any exposure to banks, either through getting loans, maybe even fucking getting an account set up.
Yeah.
This could make it harder.
Do you think this is legit? Do you think this is a legit claim? Like, if I go back and think about Silvergate, what I see is that they were picked on by the SEC, basically forced to close up shop on a Sunday night. And then the SEC said that all the other weakness in the banking system stem from this thing and their involvement with crypto, if I remember correctly. And like, to me, this is an ongoing battle to make difficult the lives of people involved in Bitcoin and crypto vis-a-vis banking, as you mentioned, this sort of like idea of choke point 2.0, right? And I look at stories like this and I just think, how many other frauds have we talked about where the SEC didn't do anything to protect them, to protect like creditors, to protect clients, to protect, there's a new fraud every day that pops up. The SEC doesn't give a shit about that, any of it. And this thing, they're still going after. What are we, like a year and a half now at this point? I think this was like March of 23, if I'm correct, I think. So
but this had to do with FTX, and FTX was almost 2 years ago, so it's even longer than your time frame.
Yeah. I'm not saying they weren't doing business with FTX, but I think the claim itself is, I think it's frivolous, honestly.
The fact that they settled, though, like, granted, it's, I guess, peanuts in the grand scheme of things.
And settling is not a function of guilt; it's a function of time and expense, right? Like,
Could be.
This is it. No, it always is. This was the thing people didn't get about Trump. Oh, Trump settled all these things out of court. Like, yeah, if he's got to spend 3 days in court and settling is less than the cost of 3 days in court for him, then you settle. Like, there's a calculus that the average person doesn't have access to that these guys do. And I think this is another example of that. Like, I don't equate settling with any admission of any kind. Nor should anyone else.
If you're an corporation, though, it's not like you're sending just a single individual like Donald Trump, and he is the industry of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You could send anybody with an FTX, and I'm not sure how the legal workings are in the United States, but if they win the court case, then they have legal claim to get all their legal expenses incorporated. So they pay for it all.
Yes.
Seriously, there's no way to.
No.
So the SEC could just voluntarily
separate thing
charge
entirely.
anybody in there.
Yes. Look at Elon. One of the big things about Elon's cases against the U.S. government over the years is that he's got the money to pay for the court costs. There's no guarantee that the court costs will be covered even if you win, because you hardly ever win, like you come up with some other lesser charge because that's the calculation people make. So
but how can they do that? They're saying you've done this.
Yes.
We haven't done this. Oh, but you've done something else. So we're going to charge you for the.
Yes.
But that's, I don't know. See, that I don't understand the fucking legal system.
Come on. It's all like,
it's the way I look at it is if they're nailing me on a cross, I want to be dealt with all the allegations for that cross, not the Jason cross.
No, all the crosses, buddy. They're moving you from cross to cross.
Fuck that, man. I guess that's it for the Bitcoin related stuff, because we got a lot more of the notable news, I think, we'll be talking about. So that's
okay. Let's GTFO. Thanks for coming. Stay here if you're on video. If you're on audio, the rest will come tomorrow as always. And until then, take care of yourself.
Don't be a cock.
50 minutes and 7 seconds. I love it. Okay. There's, oh God, tons of notable
There
stories.
is a lot. There
I saw a
is a
boatload
lot.
just today. Just today. I saw like 6 of them. I thought, there's no way we're going to be able to hit all this. Well, who knows? Let's see. But we got to bring in the PTI. We got to bring in the PTI side panel here. Put it over here.
That'd be awesome.
30 seconds at a time. Who wants to be reality? We'll have a contest. Who wants to be stat boy for the show?
That's actually we should do that. Let's look into that.
Sure.
Chicago story. Well, we always got to do a nice CBP story. Chicago story.
Yeah.
Well, this will be very quick though. I'm not going to dive deep into this because last week I mentioned that Chicago is one of the larger cities in the United States that has a debt load that's unsustainable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that the revenue coming in is really not able to support all the expenses they have. So I've learned this past week that the property taxes that Chicago collects, I believe this is the majority of the revenue that any city collects, right? Is from property taxes. I know they have user fees and shit like that, but property taxes is the biggest slice of the pie. Either way, 80% of all property taxes are earmarked to go to pay pensions, just pensions. So, like if you have to pave a road or you have to pay for something else, like the salary of the police or the fire, like all this shit, like they don't have money, right? Like property taxes too. Like it's not like it's been stagnant. Even with all this, property taxes have been skyrocketing. The median property tax bill has gone up around 70% from 2022 to 2023. So that's a significant jump.
Has gone up what percent?
70%.
70 in a year?
A year. So in 2022 to 2023. Some are, like if you look at some of the neighborhoods, are well over 100%. Well over it. So
they've doubled the property tax in some places.
In some places, sure. Shit. So, like the city I'm looking at with all this, you think makeup is like it doesn't just come from the heavens? Right? It's not free.
This guy was just on my Twitter feed before the show too. Anyway, continue. I'll find that story. We'll do it together.
Well, I just wanted to say that really, sadly, this city is starving for cash. They're cash strapped. And they had an issue not too long ago. We talked, I think last year, there was a grocery store chain that they closed up and it was underserving the community. So the Chicago decided they're going to spin up their own grocery store. So all this is going to be coming at a cost, right? They just don't have the money to make ends meet. And what are they going to do? Detroit declared bankruptcy. Did they not? Like about a decade ago? Like,
yeah, I think so.
Chicago do the same thing? Like, I don't know, man. So what are you got something you got to add?
Doesn't bode well for the reparations purse, does it?
Maybe the state is going to foot the bill on that? I don't know.
Lori Lightfoot got out just in time. She lost that election. This guy was also blaming the inordinate, actually, unfortunately, very ordinate number of young Black people being killed in Chicago on, I think, Richard Nixon about an hour ago at a press conference. So
wait, what happened? It's like a street or something, or a school?
No. There's a bunch of shootings in Chicago over the weekend, as usual. I mean, we could do a Chicago shooting hour every week if we wanted to on the show. We don't because loss of life is not to be taken lightly. But he was saying that he blames it on some president from 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
No, this is before I was born.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it wasn't Nixon. I forget exactly who. That's why I'm kind of parsing my words here. But
okay,
yeah,
this is like what the fuck happened in 1971 moment.
I mean, this guy is not a serious guy. Like at what point, Len? Again, like,
do you remember if you call the police, call 911, you have a 50-50 chance.
No one might show up. This is another thing, right? If you vote for a mayor, you get 50-50 chance the guy has any brain in his head. So sort of the same odds as the fire department and police chief, but. There's not much else you can say. Like, is this guy stupid or is he lying? That's the question you have to ask yourself about a lot of things that are uttered by modern politicians, unfortunately. And it seems to me like some of these, third world cities just haven't figured that out yet. They just keep electing these nincompoops over and over and over again. And, what can you say? You go from Lightfoot to this guy. How about looking at someone who's not like obsessed with blaming everything on other people, obsessed with giving free money away, obsessed with villainizing corporations in favor of, communist food banks, basically. Try something else, give it a shot. You might like it. I don't know. The water's pretty warm. I would say it might be time to dip your toe in if you're a Chicago voter.
They did have number of years of watching Michael Jordan. So things were much better 35 years ago, and now it's not so good.
A lot more income in that city when Jordan was there.
Yeah, the craps tables were
They're buzzing. Same with the golf courses. They were buzzing over there.
Let's go to California. We can't do a show without
Absolutely.
talking about them. We'll go to the Bay Area. That's what seemed to me my favorite. So those people that are delivering inventory to convenience stores, shit like bags of chip, vanilla Coke, or whatever, they are constantly under threat over there because it's being reported that they are now being escorted by fucking armed guards to fucking deliver inventory.
At least it's not the Secret Service. Secret Service gets knocked over by a common thief. So,
like, how fucking this is like third world bullshit, right? Like,
obviously,
right?
Shithole city, man.
What's the area?
A wise man once said that, and he was criticized, very incessantly, and he's been proven right, I think, in a lot of ways. Right?
Think about it. Silicon Valley's there. You have companies kind of close to Apple and Google and Meta.
Apple just built or was building during COVID, and I think stopped, and now is building again. As I drop my football here, a huge campus in Texas, 15,000 people. They're moving out of California. They may not be saying it, but California is no longer a place where people do business. It's a place where people do fentanyl and shit on the street and piss on restaurant goers and steal from you at tax rates that are, akin to something you might see on The Sopranos. And, people are starting to figure this out, including guys who have to stock convenience store shelves. What else can you say about this?
I want to know what company's doing it.
Yeah, me too.
I want to go long in that company because they're going to have business for decades to come. And in fact, I don't think they're going to be slowing down operations.
Isn't the other funny thing here, Len, that in a state that's so anti-gun, they realize that they have to have guns to protect the chips and cola. Isn't that something? These people are so dumb. They're all so fucking stupid. I can't stand any of them.
They're anti-oil too, but in the city of Los Angeles, there's oil derricks within the city, and they're disguised well. So they're sitting on a lot of oil, and they're extracting it, but still they vilify oil as
well. They can't. I mean, they can't keep up with their tax regime. That's another state that wanted to do reparations. Another state that wants to pay down student debts or whatever. Like, these guys are addicted to giving money away because it's the only policy position they know wins them votes. They don't have anything between their ears to come up with something that's innovative or progressive in the real sense of the word, not the political sense of the word, to drive voters and to drive business investment and to drive all these things that really make an economy go. So they just give money away. And when you give money away, you find out pretty quickly that, as I think Thatcher once said, right, it doesn't work because you run out of other people's money to spend. They might be there now. I think, they're getting closer. They're certainly running out of other people's chips to eat. They have to start protecting their own chips now. With armed guards.
Beyond that, even the ones that they do sell now, there's going to be more overhead for hiring that security guards. So that cherry Coke that would cost you $1 before is now going to cost you $1.50. People are getting priced out, not just in the home.
And Newsom will get up there with his greasy ass hair, and he'll say, we're tired of corporations gouging the California, citizens. You're a moron. It's whatever. It's fun for us. Like, I don't really care about these people. I don't think they matter in the grand scheme, but these guys are hilarious. Yeah. Boomer in the chat. California is moving up the golden machine gun index 100%. There's guys riding around it with guns and trucks now. That's signpost.
It's Grand Theft Auto in real life.
Signpost. Yeah.
So let's stay in the Bay Area. You ever hear of this place called the In-N-Out Burger? In-N-Out Burger.
Sure.
To be honest, I've never heard of it. It's a chain that's been around for decades, right?
Popular.
Yeah, apparently in its 75-year history, Joey, it has never closed one of the locations. Once they expand, they plop a store down. It's until now. Unfortunately, it was this earlier this year, because there was an In-N-Out Burger that was operating in Oakland. And even though it was profitable, it wasn't like it was hemorrhaging money. This thing was making money, but it couldn't keep it open. The operations, they had to shut it down because of a wave of car break-ins, property damage, theft, robberies, and all this were affecting customers and employees. So numbers, since 2019, police have logged over 1,300 incidences in that vicinity of the restaurant. So it's a lot in just a few short years. This includes 9 robberies, two commercial burglaries, 4 domestic violence offenses, and 1,100 car break-ins. So, anyways, in and out, they had enough.
1,100.
1,100, yes. So
Jesus,
I'm not sure how many.
Maria.
If you call it 911, I'm not sure what the percentage rate of somebody showing up. So who knows? Maybe it could be much higher.
About 550 replies.
So either way, In and Out decided they got the hell out of that area. They shuttered the place up. People complained, right? They liked the place. It was making money. Like, why the hell would they complain? So complain they did. But you know what? Somebody posted this week on Twitter or on X that the gas station just across the street from this old abandoned In and Out burger joint, because they couldn't stay it because of crime. Well, thieves ransacked this fucking gas station 4:30 in the morning, Joey. We're talking in the wee hours in the morning.
Oh my God.
Very early. 70 fucking people inside this gas station. Like the Oakland A's can't even draw 70 people to come to a fucking baseball game, and that's in the nice time. 4:30 in the morning. Thieves are coming up hand over fist out of the bushes, out of their tents, anywhere. They're coming in to take the bags of chips or whatever they can from this gas station. So what a fucking disaster, man.
I don't even know what to say to that. 70 people decide that the best way to spend their time in the middle of the night is to ransack a gas station. I mean, this is
Mad Max. Video?
I haven't seen the video, but the video.
Oh, it's fucking good. Like it's just packed inside there.
We probably can't show it on this air, but
no.
It's just like, how many more times does this have to happen before someone eventually just a gas station owner? Do you remember during the George Floyd riots, there was pictures of like Filipino, I don't want to say all Filipino, but like Asian denomination shop owners, on top of their shops with guns, like on the roof of their shops.
Oh, they're protecting their.
Get the fuck away from my store. Exactly. You don't want to see that everywhere. Like, I'd prefer not to have, sniper installments on every gas station and convenience store and every, vape store or whatever. But pretty soon you're not going to have a choice, right? You either subject yourself to the sort of whims of the fentanyl addicted, vagrant crackhead crowd, or you protect your shop. And eventually there'll be too many people who want to protect it for it not to be the norm. And then you're in a bit of a different world at that point. There's a lot of places where the danger of robbery is so high that there's armed guards out there. I think about Mexico City. I was there last year, the year before, I forget when. Even places like Punta Cana, Playa del Carmen, another Mexican tourist area. There's a lot of places like this. And, is California going to become one of these places? Is it one of these places already? Is the only reason it's not more densely filled with people who want to defend their property because guns are difficult to own, or because the sort of state legislature is unfriendly to gun owners and gun users in this case? I don't know. But at some point, those people will either protect their property or they'll leave, taking their tax contributions with them. I mean, it's funny to me that people still don't seem to understand how all this ends. It's really a testament to the sort of stupidity of the average NPC, right? These people that want to tax and tax and tax and take property protection rights away over and over and over again in favor of, I don't know, rehabilitation, sending psychiatrists instead of cops, using DEI cops instead of people who have proven to be, through meritocratic process, capable of doing the job. Where does it end? It ends with those places becoming rundown, empty holes where no one wants to live and no one pays taxes. And then what? Well, then you get, government run food stores and guys with machine guns roaming the streets and vagrant gangs of drug addicted, homeless people. I don't know. Or unhoused people, whatever the term is. I mean, these guys really spend more time criticizing people for saying homeless than they do fucking thinking about what caused them to be living in a tent in the first place. Truly fucking stupid, a lot of them. And I don't know what else to say besides that.
It's getting kind of late. I'm following the Biden program, so anything after 8, I'm done.
No, I make no guarantees on my competence here. Starting,
so I'm out of here, Joey, because I'm not scheduling.
How many times has a private neurologist been to your house in the last
8 times in the past year. It doesn't seem out of the ordinary to me, so I'm happy with it. Either way, 8 o'clock, we fucking shut it down. I like that Biden. That's the way we do things. He might be the president of the United States, but come 8 o'clock, wherever he is fucking
who's running the show at 8 o'clock then? Like, who takes over? It's like
whoever's
Nick
running
at
it at 7:30.
Remember Nickelodeon used to run Nick at Night? You'd see like it would go from like kid-friendly cartoons to like Rocko's Modern Life and Beavis and Butthead and all these other sort of off the beaten path.
That happens in the Biden household.
They start watching the TV with swear words. They get the Baby Blue movies on starting at 8 o'clock over there.
Could you at 8 o'clock? He's had enough, guys. It's been a long day. If I put a solid 2.5 hours here, I'm
President done. Netanyahu, I need to actually go to bed here. I'm my faculties are leaving me.
Give me a call in the morning. I know it might be we're 12-hour difference. Where the fuck it is? 9.
Did you watch the Stephanopoulos interview? Are we talking about Biden and notables here?
Yeah, go ahead. We'll talk about Mr.
Did
Biden.
You watch Stephanopoulos' interview with him? It's 22 minutes. It looks to me to be unedited.
I saw like a clip.
And it is not, Len, it is not very good for that campaign at all. If Stephanopoulos asked him about the debate a bunch of times, he's like, did you watch the debate afterwards? Biden looks at him. He's like, I don't know. I don't think I did.
Was I there?
Yeah.
Who was in it?
What debate? Was it good? Like, no, it was not good. You were there. And he's like, yeah, I didn't prepare.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I don't blame anybody but myself. I feel so bad for the guy. His wife's fucking psycho. But anyway, story for another time. Where do you want to
Well, let's go to France. I think it's a good time to talk about France.
Sure.
So France.
I gotta put on my don't get fired hat here, like I said to you earlier. But yeah,
do your best. Look, I'll give you a little bit of time to think about what you're going to say, because for those who are unaware, France is undergoing an election. I think this is the second round of elections that it's taken place. So it looks like initially the right-wing Le Pen government looks like it was going to be formed, but look, there's been a change. Left-leaning coalition has formed, and they have taken first place, or looks like they're taking first place. Nothing is yet set in stone, but either way, if they do go ahead and form government, the left-leaning coalition do, there's going to be some new tax rates that are going to be implemented. They've been mentioning that as of right now, the highest tax bracket is at 177,000 euros. And anybody that's earning more than 177k euro in France is subjected to a 45% income tax. Okay. They're thinking about putting a new one of if you earn over 411,000 euros. And if you do, you're going to be subjected to 90% income taxes. So it's be progressive. So every dollar past 411,000 euros will be subjected to 90% taxes. And on top of that, they are also talking about raising the minimum wage to 14 euro per hour. Also thinking about
what is 14 euro per hour in Canadian? Like 70 grand? Like a lot. Like what?
If I had to guess, it's $19.
I don't know.
Am I wrong?
I gotta look. Let me find out. I'll find out. Keep talking.
And so also what they want to do is they want to reverse Macron's pension reform. Remember, he was subjected to a lot of public protest because they increased the age in which you could retire and get pension. They want to reduce that to where it was previous to Macron's changes. So more taxes, 90% income tax over $411,000. Yeah, higher minimum wage, and reverse the pension reforms. This is going to be interesting to see if they go ahead with it. Nothing set in stone. I don't know who's going to be forming government there.
Why do the French keep voting against their own self-interest? What is it about them?
They always vote for a leftish. See, I think the guy, I was watching a video today, and a professor from France, and he was talking about the last time, and I can't believe you said it, the last time that they voted in a right-leaning government, they were pro-Nazi.
Wasn't Sarko?
That's what he's. I don't know. I don't know.
So I think Sarko was more right than. I mean, everyone was more right than these guys 10 years ago. Sarko would have been probably closer to 20 years ago at this point. But I mean, look, man, these guys are voting against their own self-interest. It's a phenomenon that you see over and over again in the modern world. All of a sudden, I think Canada does it too, to an extent. The states, some states do it.
Be very careful how you dance.
Yeah. I don't get me wrong. Like, I think there's people who don't understand the damage they do by voting for something like this tax bracket, right? Like this is something that was floated before the election, during the election, and now after. And it's not like they didn't know about this, but the widget buying class doesn't have the mental faculty, the mental capacity to think past the next thing they buy on Amazon. And it's evidenced by voting for a policy like this. We've talked about this many times. Let's just break it down once more for the people in the back. If you take from your most productive people the money they earn, that puts them in a category where they are like, national producers of X product or service, they will take their company and leave your jurisdiction. How do I know this? Look at Canada. No company wants to do business here except for Loblaws and Robellis. That's it over here. We basically have no other services over here except for those, major telecos and the grocery chains.
And tahinis.
And tahinis, I guess.
Tahinis
Although once Ali gets to a certain number, I wouldn't be surprised if he, sends out the tweet that he's closing up shop too and moving over to Texasinis or whatever. And so like the people who vote for this stuff don't really understand. They think they're voting in their own self-interest, but they're not. They think they're voting in their own self-interest because as we've discussed on the show, they may see a short-term bump in the affordability of certain things because they get a new check in the mail or a new stimulus. But long-term, inflation comes with stimmy, and it will destroy the affordability of all the things in your life. Your salaries won't keep up because new companies are not going to come and compete for your labor. And when that happens, you end up working in public sector jobs or poor paying jobs. And the general sort of competence of the population goes down. The general availability of services and products goes down. And you wind up with a stripped out, hollowed out tax base that can't replace things that are lost, things like roads, hospitals, schools, and all those things get worse too. And over time, it's actually the people at the bottom of the food chain who vote for these policies who feel these effects the most. The people who you think you're quote unquote voting against will just leave. They'll just leave. And, I don't think there's not really much debate about this. I've heard on many shows, and like I said to you guys today, I'm wheezing a bit here. My cat must have hair in this room. Like I said to you guys today in the Bull Bitcoin chat, like the number of people who are now thinking about their exit plan, I think is higher than ever. And I know that's the case here. I know that's the case in the US. I know that's the case in European countries as well. And for France, I'm sure it's the case there after this election, probably even before too. 90% is untenable for people who are making that much money. They're not going to agree to pay 90% of every dollar they earn, but no matter how crazy that law may seem now, in 5 years, when there's another 500,000 million immigrants in the country with, little or no resources, when there's another generation of kids who feel like they're underrepresented in politics and aren't earning the same living their parents did, when there's another set of politicians who say that it's just going to take one more tax to set things right, and we're going to make sure that you get another $500 every month, 500 euros every month, whatever. We're going to raise the minimum wage again. It just compounds. And there's no precedent for any of this stuff because we're, like we've talked about a bunch. I think we're kind of at the end stages of the fiat experiment. It seems to me. I don't know how long that'll take, but it seems to me like we're there. We don't have
5 years, according to some folks.
Yeah, exactly. The accelerationist. I don't think that this is out of the realm of possibility that you see, 2 more elections, 3 more elections like this. And actually, I know we joke on this show about the Canadian elections sometimes coming up next year, but I wouldn't put any money on Poilievre winning that election. I just think that there's too many people who will vote again against their own long-term self-interests in favor of short-term, easing their short-term burden. Because like I said before, these people are just not capable of thinking past the next widget. And we've introduced an incentive to continue voting this way because there's no hope on the horizon, thanks to, decades of poor policy from all sides of the aisle in a lot of countries that's really damaged currencies and damaged value maintenance through different products like Bitcoin or gold or whatever, and forced people to make otherwise not foolish, but strange decisions in terms of financial behavior just because the currency doesn't work anymore, you know? And so like, again, I don't want to paint the French people as stupid, but they're not thinking long-term. The people who are voting for this stuff are not thinking long-term. And I hate to say it, if you look at the people in these videos where they're celebrating the left-wing win, I mean, do any of those people look like net producers to you? I don't know. I'm not one to judge a book by a cover all the time, but look at the videos and see what you think. And you be the judge if you think those people are net producers or not. I don't think a lot of them are, if I had to guess. I see yesterday there was, riots in the street from the quote unquote winners of the election, burnt buildings on fire. These people are not net producers. If you want to tie your carriage to that horse, go for it. But I think it's going to be to your detriment long term.
Did you see that in the US last month, the jobs number that came out? Apparently 3/4 of the jobs that were created.
Yeah, part-time.
Government jobs.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. You're right. Yeah.
So,
does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, and I don't want to go into that. So that's truly not sustainable, right? Like when you have not enough tax dollars coming in, and there's going to be
print the money, you increase the tax capture, you print the money to pay people, and then take the money back through tax, and then call it GDP. Now you explain to me how that data is reviewed with a straight face by any economist, banker, politician, or otherwise, and called GDP, called productivity, called anything. It's completely insane. Anyway, continue.
It works in the short term. It does boost the GDP, but what then will eventually happen is the GDP per capita will take a huge impact. And especially as you bring in people too. That's another thing that they're doing here in Canada. A lot of people come in, and that does increase the GDP. It's measurable, but the GDP per capita suffers as a result. But you said that there's a chance you don't think Poilievre is going to form government in Canada. I think that.
I would not bet on anything, Len, honestly.
Well, nothing's for sure.
Yeah.
But if I had to bet, I would say that the Conservatives will get the most seats in the next election. Not to say that they'll form government, but they'll get the most seats. Because a lot could happen between now and October of 2025. A lot of people's minds may change. A lot of things can happen.
People's minds will change. More people will come here. There's a push
but they can't vote. They cannot vote. Okay. You have to be a citizen of Canada to vote. Okay. And in order to get citizenship, there's requirements that take years.
I've been to a polling station and not had to show ID and not have my name on the polls. So, like, you can do it. And the question is, will it be done? I don't know. I'm not sure. I really don't know what to say about any of that. It's hard. It's hard. The fact of the matter is there's a lot riding on these elections in the States. The UK just had one, France, Norway,
Germany,
more elections this year than I think in any year of the last 50. And
there's a lot of, you mentioned them.
Yeah. There's a lot of policies that I don't want to say are unpopular, but are certainly polarizing. And you're in a polarized world now in a way that I don't think a lot of people really realize. And the ballot is secret for a reason. A lot of people will say they, oh, I don't like this person, that person, this politician, that politician, and then vote the other way. Or Len, how many more economic situations are going to be so dire that people need another $500 every quarter from, the green energy check or whatever, whatever new drop comes here in Canada or other countries. Anything can happen. If you think that the economic situation is going to get worse, then that the other side of that coin is that more people are going to be desperate in a way that they're not desperate now, and desperate people don't make good decisions at the ballot box.
The only problem for the Liberal Party is Trudeau is not.
It's not popular. Yeah.
And that's going to be and I don't know a way around that for him.
He doesn't seem to care. And to his credit, I think, I listened to pollsters say things like, oh, there's never been a prime minister this unpopular in, 30 years or 40 years. The pollsters I get are doing a job and are asked a question and they answer the question to the best of their ability, but they're operating in a world they've never operated in before. News cycles are shorter than ever. And anything can change week to week, month to month. There's entire teams of people now digging 24/7 into the backgrounds of every politician they need to beat. And they're not sharing those stories right away. They're waiting for the highest impact moments. The Liberal Party as a machine is a monolith. It is called the natural ruling party for a reason. And whether you agree or disagree with that designation, these guys mean business when it comes to elections. And I will not put anything past them in terms of the competence internally and the capability they will put on display as that election draws near. Because it seems to me like these guys do not give a fuck about any of the polls that are coming out. And that tells me something about what's going on inside the party machinery. Don't you think?
I don't think they have an ace up their sleeve. I think that they're just running on history, and historically, if you're a prime minister, you run again. You don't get kicked out for within. The only time I recall it, like they pushed somebody, was Chrétien, and he was pushed out, right? Like he was just a better time. Before that, I can't remember the last time that happened. Maybe Trudeau? No, not even then. Either way,
I don't know.
So he has. Remember, he took the party from third party status to governing. That
but
never happens.
He took him there. Did he take him there, or was it just their time to return to that? People were tired of Harper. They were tired. They didn't want NDP.
The perfect storm. It was the perfect, but he was the one that was there. Nobody would have guessed that they would have been from 2 years before the election. They would have been third party to forming government. Shit never happened in Canada. And they did it. But they were put in that position too. The fact that Ignatieff ran a really bad campaign. So if you're thinking that the Liberal Party, and so like that's the thing. If there was, I remember vividly the attack ads. Do you remember them?
Yeah, of course. He's just visiting.
Correct.
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
Still 13 years later, it's ingrained in your head. What's going to happen next year is the same type of thing. There's going to be attack ads like crazy that's going to resonate with people, and it's going to stick in their head against the prime minister because they have the money. They're raising a ton of cash, more so than the other parties combined, and they're going to be spending it in the same type of ways they did in the past. Run negative campaigns, do it over and over again, and that shit will stick. Look, they lost Toronto St. Paul's. That shit doesn't happen.
I know.
And that's just
according to that one prognosticator, there was election interference. We can't discount that. That guy seemed to be sharp and on the ball. We don't want to discount that guy's opinion.
I like the backdrop was perfect too. We had the homeless guy that was lying down,
experiencing houselessness.
Yeah, that he was. And let's transition to another topic. Another guy that's experiencing houselessness. 37-year-old electrician in St. John's, Newfoundland, and this is a CBC story, and CBC published this, and it was interesting story about how this guy's trying to find a way to have a roof over his head because he's been priced out of the housing market over there, and he's being creative, and how he's renting office space.
Hell yeah.
And $450 a month he's renting the office space for. So he put two and two together. This is cheaper than renting a home, because if you do look at the average in St. John's, it's $1,060 per month for renting a place in St. John's. In fact, in Canada, it's $2,200.
Just crossed 2,200 the first time, right? Yeah.
So he said he could afford up to $750 per month. So he was priced out around the $1,000 on average. You couldn't find anything less than $850, in fact, in St. John's. So he rented this office space for $450 a month, and he's doing that. And then they ask, how do you eat? Well, he eats a lot of potatoes and pizza pops, stuff that you could put in a microwave, and he sleeps on a futon mattress. And when it comes to showering, he says he bird baths it in a sink. This is how he makes ends meet. This is how people are doing it. St. John's is not a place you could live in a tent 12 months of the year. It's fucking cold over there, and it's not just the cold, it gets to your bones because it's that humid cold too. So what did this guy do? Renting office space. You know what? Good for him. I hope he doesn't get kicked out, because somebody could look at this and say this is against your terms of agreement and something like that, and he'll be on the street. But sad story.
Friendly tip for that guy: add $50 to your monthly costs and get a gym membership and shower, shave, all that stuff at the gym. Might not be a bad idea. Plus, do a little networking. Maybe someone can help you out. You might meet somebody who's in the same boat. Maybe you guys get a house together. That'd be my advice to him. Sad story, but I love the creativity. Can't wait to hear in 2 weeks when we talk about this again that he's been tossed out because it made national news.
That's true, because the radar is on him, and
Of course, of course.
Anyways, talk about a recent survey that was done by Ipsos Reid, and Global News was reporting on it. And this survey says that 7 in 10 Canadians feel that the country is quote unquote broken.
Mm-hmm.
And incredibly, Canadians aged between 18 and 34, 78% of those people have the viewpoint that Canada, the country, needs to be fixed. So the older you get, the less likely that people think that it's broken and it needs to be changed, because people that are older, they probably have a hard asset like a home. They probably have savings, investments, job that pays more than they were younger. So they're able to shield themselves from inflation than, say, a younger individual. So either way, that's a lot of people. 7 in 10 feel that the country is broken. And you know what? We just talked about the election in Toronto, St. Paul's. And that's an indication that there's people that are very upset with what's going on, and they're looking for some sort of change. And they're doing this with voting, but we'll see what happens next year.
Yeah. You know, like I said this last week, and I thought about it a little bit after, and I really stand by it. There's like a level of sort of spiritual poverty that a lot of Canadians are experiencing for the first time. And with that spiritual poverty comes this feeling like the country's broken, because when you don't have camaraderie in your job, or camaraderie in your school, or camaraderie in your community, or, you know, all these things that really give you purpose, and you can't start a family, and you can't, you know, find a partner, you're going to feel like things are broken, regardless of how good everything else is. If you can't find, you know, companionship in one way or another, everything else is going to seem more gray. That's natural. That's the natural state of affairs for humans. We're social creatures. We found that out, I think, for a lot of people, the hard way during COVID. You need to be around other people. You need to have something to build towards and a goal to achieve, and all these things, you know, meaningful life. Right. And when you think about, you know, surveys like this and other ones we've seen where people are talking about, you know, are you ready to leave the country? Are you ready to, you know, leave after school? Are you thinking about starting a family or not? When was the last time you had sex with a partner? All these things, they point to a certain level of, you know, a certain level of spiritual decay, let's say, in the country. We talk a lot about moral decay and ethical decay and stuff like that. But, you know, this is a sort of spiritual decay that I think religious people would say used to be filled by the church and is no longer filled by the church because people are kind of moving away from organized religion. I would say it used to be filled by, you know, community and partnership and romance and things like that. That's more difficult now, thanks to things like dating apps and the Pareto principle and being priced out of housing and things of this nature.
I go to a protest. You could probably find somebody like-minded.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sure everyone's got, you know, a Palestine flag or whatever at their house. They can just swing around downtown, meet some friends. But like the thing I think I would say is this is a symptom of a larger problem, and it's not necessarily a strictly economic one. It's part of it is economic, but the other part is a little deeper than that, and it's harder to fix. And I see it, unfortunately, with like some people I know. I won't say who, but there are people I know who I think are experiencing the beginnings of this, or the sort of, you know, the build up of these feelings. Like, yeah, you know, I don't see anybody after work. I don't like hang out with people. I don't like hang out with the opposite sex. I don't, you know, have a community. My neighbors are kind of weird. They're low income. They're not on the same plane as me in a lot of ways. And this is a problem, right? Like, I know we rag all the time here on people who are like, sort of think they're too big for their bridges. But, you know, if you're a person like this guy who's an electrician, I think you said, living in the office, right?
37-year-old electrician.
So 37-year-old electrician, the guy's clearly a competent fella. You know, if he buys an apartment in a low income part of town, or like a rent controlled part of town, you know, you can't kick people out. So who else is he going to see there? He's not going to see other people who are electricians like him. He's going to see people who are kind of stupid. You know, I hate to say it, it's harsh, but it's the best way to put it. And you can't build
down on their luck, Joey.
Yeah, some of them are, but some of them are not. You know, how much luck does it take to move out of a low income house after 15 years? Some of those places have been occupied for that long because you can't raise rents and you can't boot them out. And, you know, I hate to put that label on people, but think about what it would be like living with people who are clearly a rung below you in terms of, like, you know, competency and confidence and communication skills. And, you know, like, that's fucking hard, man. It's hard. All this stuff, these are questions that we never had to answer before. But there is something to this idea that birds of a feather flock together. And right now they're not being allowed to. And so what do? You feel like you're alone. And when you have that feeling, it really does affect every other part of your life. And like I said, I've seen it in people that I know, and I don't like it. But again, there's no easy solution for this stuff. But to pretend it's not happening is more detrimental than to at least acknowledge it and try and solve it. And unfortunately, we're choosing the former in almost every case, it feels like at this point.
Well, maybe you got to just go with a different group of people, Joey. Look at this Global Mail article, for instance. Because Ottawa is considering buying hotels to house the growing number of asylum seekers. There's a number of asylum seekers here, but I'll actually give you the numbers in a bit, and it's not what we think it is.
Okay.
Immigration Minister Mark Miller, he's been indicating that there's a possibility to buy up these hotels to deal with the high cost of dealing with the asylum seekers, because they have to block bookings of hotels right now. And so far, Canada has booked 4,000 hotel rooms for the 7,300 asylum seekers.
Wow.
And this is a way to get, savings. It'll be cost efficient. And this option of being thrown around to buy a hotel and convert it into a place to house these refugee claimants, maybe makes sense in the long run. And it's being reported that the federal government spent more than $100 million for asylum seekers, for housing for them in just Niagara Falls alone, just for using hotels over there. 100 millions between February 2023 and February 2024.
God, that is not a long time. Yeah.
And that's just in Niagara Falls. So on average, refugee claimants stay 113 days at a cost of $208 per person each day, including room, meals, and security. And I took a look at the number of asylum seekers. I couldn't find it for this year or last year. 2022 is the latest one I could find. But do you know the number of people that are claiming asylum in Canada is down significantly from other peaks? 1994 was the highest that I've seen. 2007 was slightly lower than that, and we are significantly lower than
what
those
was 94? Kosovo? Maybe?
Yes.
Yeah,
it was
okay.
that, and I guess the very beginning of what was going on in Somalia.
Yeah. Okay.
And 2007, I'm not sure what would have been the reason for asylum seekers. Maybe it was strife in the Middle East. That may be it. I can't remember what's
I'm not sure.
Significant event.
There's always strife in the Middle East. Like, I don't know what would have been the.
But there was
there
was a between Afghanistan and then Iraq war.
Iraq was 2001, really. Afghanistan was 01. Iraq was 03.
Afghanistan went for a long time. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, but I don't know. We got to think about it anyway. Yeah.
But either way, if you look at the number of asylum seekers that are claiming refugee status in Canada now, at least 2022, it's much lower than it was years ago. So there may be a perception that there is a lot of people that are making claims for asylum here, but in reality,
I don't think
there isn't.
I don't think that perception exists. I think the government wants you to have that perception, but it's not actually what's happening. It's TFWs that are causing the problem.
Yeah, that's definitely. I don't want to say it's increasing the amount of the burden.
It's causing a problem. It's causing a problem. Schools, roads, infrastructure, housing. It's causing a problem.
And then, in addition to that story, also the city of Ottawa is looking to buy a nunnery for around $11 million, and this is $10 million plus an extra $1 million.
Was that nunnery on MTV Cribs for that price? What the fuck does that place look like?
It's humongous. It's a huge lot of land. It's I saw aerial footage. It's just lovely from above. Either way, why are they doing this? Is because the city of Ottawa is having issues with dealing with a number of newcomers, and they want to relieve the pressure on the overburdened shelters. So as a way to do this, $11 million has been earmarked to purchase this, retrofit it, and set it up for a place for as a shelter for newcomers to Canada. So there you go. That's a couple of stories.
You think a purchase and a retrofit of a nunnery can be done for $11 million?
No, this is just the purchase. This is simply just a purchase.
And so that's going to take what, 5 years ish, probably longer.
Longer. I don't know how long.
I'd say probably longer.
I see this place. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's probably going to take longer than that. Like, I don't know, man. It's a lot of fucking money, you know. We talk about, people who can't afford food. I don't know. To me, it's like there's clearly a problem with the math here. And I'm not going to go too much further than that, but we got to start looking at both sides of the equation here, not just the, how much more money can we pour into this side, but rather how can we cut the expenses of this? We got to stop. It has to stop sometime. It has to. Unemployment and PEI I saw in terms of the TFWs up near 14% for young people. 15 to 24.
Canada's youth unemployment is 13.5%. Just for Canada.
PEI is 14 or 15. Super high. And that's the same place where you see these protests where temporary foreign workers are calling PEI residents racist, discriminatory for wanting them to leave at the end of their foreign worker thing. Something like 86% of temporary foreign workers are working in food service in Canada. That's not a place we had a shortage of workers. There's lots of 15-year-olds walking around that could take those jobs. Anyway, go ahead. Let's talk about the unemployment numbers.
So to give you the number of temporary foreign workers in Canada in fast food increased between 2018 and 2023. So in a 5-year period, it increased 4,800%.
Wow.
Cooks, almost 300%. Truck drivers, 360%. Construction workers, almost 4,000%.
Yep.
That's in a 5-year period of time. Anyways, unemployment did go up in Canada, 6.4%. And economists were expecting...
Ticked up from 6.2, right? Was that the jump? Yeah, okay.
I think that's the number. But what was concerning is that economists were expecting a 25,000 job gain, but it was the opposite. Not opposite, but it was 1,400 were lost as a result.
Weird. That's
so
weird.
They decreased interest rates last month.
Yep. 2 months
inflation,
ago, right? Or a month ago? I forget now. Maybe you're right.
It's the last time they met. So then inflation went up month over month. Unemployment is going up month over month. So I'm wondering what's their next move if they're going to stand pat.
They're going to cut again.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
mortgage is the only thing they care about. Home values is the only thing they care about. They'll sacrifice everything else at the altar of home values, including the dollar.
Did you see that the Citibank were saying that the Federal Reserve is going to slash 200 points over the next 8 meetings?
It's believable. I don't know. Like, if you could tell me anything, if I went into a coma and you told me rates were the same in the States a year from now, I'd believe you. And if they were half what they are, I'd believe you. Like, there's nothing. The thing about the data is that it's all made up, and there's no way to get reliable data. The street doesn't have a reliable prediction method. We've talked about this so many times. The States revises data down by 50% some quarters, the next quarter, the next month. The data is meant to support a narrative. And the narrative is based on how do we want the economy to behave at this moment in time. And I think the core concern is, at least in our case, housing. And, we've talked a lot about how in our CPI measurement, they have rents and mortgages, which I think, drives up the CPI number more frequently and with more inertia than it does in other places because it's not added to the CPI basket. And we have short-term mortgages here. 5 years is short-term, and people who did their mortgage in 2020 for 4 years or 5 years, they're starting to come due here. And the government and the bank, simply do not want those people to struggle with mortgages that are 50% higher every month in an economy where they might not have a secure job. That's really all it boils down to. And so they have to keep the cost of money low, the price of money low via the interest rate, and they're going to do it. There's no two ways about it. The question isn't, are they going to do it? The question is, should they have started this earlier? Do they think about the repercussions and side effects? Yeah, I think they probably should have started earlier, but the bank is almost never right. Many people say Macklem is the worst Bank of Canada or the worst central bank governor in the world. Of course, he did also put his son in charge, or as part of the people in charge of CPP-IB, which underperformed the index last year. That's a story.
Wait, did he put him in, or somebody else did?
What's the fucking difference? He's the Bank of Canada governor. If his son works for CPP-IB, it's because he fucking put him there. End of story. And this sort of nepotism, not seen since the 2024 Lakers and LeBron's kid, really speaks to the level of competence you see at the highest levels here. you have to look out for yourself in such a major way these days. It's just never, I don't think anyway, Len, that it's ever been this bad. And I'm not supposed to think that in my 30s, right? I'm supposed to think that in my 60s or whatever, that kids are, doing the wrong things and people are fucking things up and whatever. But I look around and I'm like, man, this sure does look pretty bad for a lot of people. And I think, boomers could catch some unfair guff for this. And people say it's like, they're protecting their wealth in an unfair way and the government's supporting them and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, maybe. But the bigger problem you have is that the sacrifice is always being made at the currency level to make sure that debt is perpetuated. This is the case everywhere, and it's the case here too. And you're going to see another round of it as the bank continues to ease. Maybe not next meeting, but they're going to do it again before the end of the year. And our economy is clearly slowing down. For us to have lost jobs, had rising unemployment, and still had significant net immigration, now you want to talk unsustainable. That, my friend, is unsustainable.
Yeah, it's time too that kids are coming out of school. They're getting jobs in fast food and services, whatever. So it's not a time when jobs are being cut, where jobs should be
They're
created.
open. Yeah.
There's demand for doing things that are
well, in the natural order of things. Like I think about my time at Zellers years and years ago. The natural order of things is when you're in school, right? For those, I think it's probably still 8 months for universities. It was 8 months when I was in school. So you're there September to May. The 8 months a year in school, you work pretty sparingly. You work maybe some evenings, you might work a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you're home for the weekend, whatever, try and put some cash in your pocket. And during those months, the senior people, Maureen and Terry and Nancy, and Sue, whoever's working the cash, they're working 40 hours a week, every week without exception, sometimes more. If like your ass can't make it in because you're hungover or you partied too much on Friday night and couldn't get home on the Saturday morning bus or whatever. In the summertime, when you're home and you want the 40 hours because you got to fill your pockets, the nice ladies who've been covering for you all year, that's when they take their cottage weekends, when they take their vacation, when they see their grandkids, when they see their kids, whatever. That's the natural order of things. And so to your point, yeah, should be a lot of hours opening up in the summer for people. But this time it didn't, and you got to ask yourself, I mean, any sensible person would ask themselves what changed? And, I got a couple of ideas. You could go back and watch the earlier part of this show or other episodes we've done. I think we got a pretty good handle on exactly what changed.
That's it, Joey.
Yeah. Great.
You're going to watch today. Yeah. So it sounds like you're a big fan of Bronny then.
My God. Did you watch me the other night? House of Highlights had his highlight package and the YouTube thumbnail is great. It's like his big face, Bronny James, first game highlights, just has 4 points. And in the highlight package, they put a bunch of missed field goals. Like everyone is onto this guy, his grift.
How much time before, do you think that he may discover he's not who he is?
It doesn't matter now because the Lakers signed him to a 4-year deal with 3 years guaranteed for $5 million.
So they're burying him on the bench. They're not going to.
He's got a roster spot. Most guys who get picked at 55 or 56, wherever he got picked, get what's called a 2-way contract, which I'm sure you're familiar with. You play a little bit in the developmental league, a little bit in the pros. If you meet a certain threshold, you automatically sunset into a 1-year contract with the team. It's usual stuff, right? It's sort of a prove it deal, and for him, he's not had to prove anything. So. Yes, we're gonna see how it goes.
That's nepotism.
Yeah, big time.
What happens when his career's finished in the NBA? It doesn't sound like from what I'm hearing, he has longevity.
I don't know. Him and his dad will start a podcast.
Once his dad retires, what's anchoring him to stay around, right?
LeBron just signed a 2-year deal with them, so he'll be there.
But he's not going to play forever, right? They're going to comes a point in time. Everybody.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think he's going to be done. LeBron.
Do you think there's any possibility that he may come out as something else and maybe have a chance to play in the W side of things?
He's gonna have to stay in the MNBA, I'm pretty sure, not the WNBA. Yeah, too late now. Anyway, that's it for tonight. See you guys Wednesday.
Maybe a dominant force over there. You never know.
Okay, good night. God bless you. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Don't be a cock.
Dominant force, he says. He could be a dominant